Yo guys, welcome to a new video. In today's video we're going to be talking all about diet, mental performance, how the food we eat has such an impact on how our brains function, and how, in a sense, ultimately how our lives unfold. Because I feel like it's a huge misconception that people don't realize that the food they eat actually has an impact on how their brain or how their body performs. I mean, I wish it was as simple as I could just eat whatever I like and, you know, I get to function on an optimal level or on a maximal level. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. The metaphor I always use is, would you put, diesel fuel in a petrol fueled car? Now, the fuel in the metaphor is basically our food. So the food for us is the fuel and the car is the body. So that metaphor, if you really try and, think about that metaphor every time you eat food, it's not that you can't eat any food, it's just you've got to be smart. It's like the way we work, we have to work smart. Smart work outperforms working for a long period of time but not working in a systematic way, working in ways where you are just not being productive or procrastinating. It's just not it's not a smart way of working. So segmenting tasks, doing all sorts of things that you can do, small tasks in small chunks, and and do those multiple times a day, other than spending 6 hours on one task and just ultimately getting stressed out and in the end getting nowhere. It's just all about working smart, and it works exactly the same way with your diet. Now, I've got some books in front of me. We have got Headstrong by Dave Asprey. Okay, this is all about. Well, I'll read the. I've got two books here from him, so they're kind of two different kind of books, but linked in the same way. So one book is all about basically hacking the brain, so biohacking the brain, and then the other book is basically talking about diet. And like I say, they're interlinked in a sense because it's all about the food you eat has an impact on your body. But like I say, one book focuses mainly on diet and a kind of a set meal plan or a set structure to follow. And then we have the Headstrong book, which is basically more scientific, talking about all the organs and all the things that impact your brain, all the chemicals, all the neurobiology is mainly in this book. So we have the bulletproof plan to activate untapped brain energy to work smarter and think smarter. And this is Headstrong by Dave Asprey. And a phenomenal book. If I could show you, I don't know if the camera will pick it up. We'll have a look. You can see kind of that I have a lot of pages folded over. They are the pages that I have marked and underlined and highlighted things. There is so much in this book. I'm not trying to sell you this book. I'm just trying to use this to explain my thoughts upon, diet, brain function, and everything else. And then we've got the Bulletproof Diet, which is exactly by, same again, Dave Asprey. And like I say, this is lose up to a pound a day, reclaim energy and focus, upgrade your life. And now a book that I have brought recently, I listened to the audiobook at the weekend a couple of days ago, and I brought the book because the audiobook was so good. This is Change Your Brain, Change Your Life by Dr. Daniel G. Amen. Okay, like I say, I haven't read this yet, but I have listened to the audiobook and I have read a lot of quotes and articles from the author, Daniel. And I've also brought 3 new books. I will just list them off on my phone. 3 new books. I have the audiobooks and I've ordered the physical books. Now, I always buy both because a technique that I use is I listen to the audiobook whilst I'm reading, so that I can basically read for a lot longer, because I start off reading myself and listen to the audio, and then I take breaks, and then I let the audio carry on, and I basically follow the audio, and then I get back into it, and then I start reading with my eyes in my mind, and I still listen to the audio, and I get to pause and underline things and highlight things. And also when I'm working or when I'm in the gym, I also listen back to the audiobook to kind of, reinstill those passages or those texts or quotes, and take screenshots. And then I go back to the book, find that point, and then highlight it and make notes. So the 3 books that I've brought on Audible, which is the app where you can basically, you can. So this is Audible, and I have hundreds and hundreds of books on here. Probably about 200 books on here, all paid for. Those are ones that I haven't really downloaded to the phone because I've already listened to them on other devices. If I downloaded every single one, I probably wouldn't have enough memory, so I kind of have to download one, listen to it, and then I have to basically just remove it from the phone. But the one we have, as you can see here, we have Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, we have The Bulletproof Diet, and we have Headstrong. Now, I've listened to all 3 of these, and the other 3 that I have, if I just quickly show you. So the other 2 are Brain Grain and Genius Foods, if you can see there. So I've finished Genius Foods, and I'm about halfway through Brain. And the interesting thing with this, okay, and I'm not trying to preach this on anyone, this is how I learn. So what I do is when I try to learn a subject like biology or diet or investing or finance, any area that any topic that I'm trying to learn, I take multiple authors. So I buy at least 5 to 6 books, okay, by different authors, different years, and then I read the books. I combined all the thoughts, all their opinions. I take their opinions, I take their way of seeing that certain point or that hypothesis. I put them all together. I see what people agree on, I see what people disagree on, I see why they disagree, and then I make my own judgment. Okay, so I take all these opinions and thoughts and disagreements, and then I kind of combine them all together. I make notes on every single book, highlight pages, I make external notes, I listen to the audiobooks, I write notes in my phone, and then I basically, like I say, come up with my own thought, my own feelings towards that topic. So it's not exactly, I'm not faking what I'm saying, because I'm taking it from professors, or I'm taking it from doctors, people who have studied the area, like these people here, Dr. G. Amen, the doctors have been studying this subject for 30 years. Their daily job from Monday to Friday is studying, the brain and how food reacts with the brain. So I feel like it's easier for me to go to the top. And what I mean by that, it's easier for me to, if I don't know quantum mechanics, it's easier for me to go to someone who studied or has studied quantum mechanics for many years, because I'm not a physicist, but I can learn from a physicist. So when I started learning quantum mechanics or physics, I basically bought 10 books because it's a more advanced topic. I brought 10 books. Okay, I brought some textbooks and I brought some physical paperbacks. And the difference there is textbooks compared to paperbacks are different. They're a different way of learning, academic versus more everyday people in bookshops buying paperbacks instead of basically textbooks. And then once I have that, I try and read as much as I can, and like I say, I generate my own opinion. And what I have done, the incredible thing is, I've been following the ketogenic diet, which is a diet where you basically have high fat, so high healthy fat, so red meat, avocados, eggs, peanut butters, almonds and stuff like this, high healthy fats, and you lower the carbohydrate intake. And basically your body starts producing ketones as its primary energy source instead of using glucose. When you eat carbohydrates, your body breaks those carbohydrates down into glucose. And for that to happen, your body has to produce insulin out of the pancreas. And every time your body produces insulin, your energy, so you eat carbohydrates, your blood sugar levels rise, your body then produces insulin out of the pancreas to break down the carbohydrates. As soon as your body starts breaking down the carbohydrates, your energy levels come down, and then a lot of people get that, they get that energy spike, and then they come down, they get tired. So they get tired, they get in that state of quite sleepy, being tired, not kind of lackadaisical, not wanting to basically be productive because they've had that huge spike, they've had that sugar insulin spike, the body's broken down or used those carbs, and then the energy levels comes back down, and then you go for like a midday nap, or they get tired, and a lot of people do nap because of that breakdown. Now, where the ketogenic diet basically is different or indifferent to the high carb diet is basically when you eat fat, your body does not have to produce insulin to break down the fats. So your body can use fat straight away as energy instead of having to produce a lot of insulin, whereby your insulin levels have to rise and then they come down and you get that energy decrease. Whereas when you're in ketosis, your body is actually producing 28% more energy around the body and to the brain, because when you're in a state of ketosis, your body is producing ketones as its primary energy source, and the body prefers to use one energy source than two, because you have fats and you have carbohydrates. Most people are eating too much of both. Your body wants to use one energy source, and the primary energy source the body prefers is fat, mainly because 1,000 years ago, all we really ate was basically protein and fats from animals. You had some grains, but very minimal. So the body has been basically climatized to eat fat and protein and quite low carbohydrates. Now in this modern era where we're eating all this sugar, all this starch, all this, processed food and pasta and beans and oats, and even though oats are considered healthy and whole grain is considered healthy, these foods have gluten in, and gluten causes inflammation, and it can cause inflammation to the brain. It can slow down neurogenesis. Neurogenesis is the process by which new neurons are created in the brain. When you eat a high fat diet, your body actually produces it stimulates neurogenesis, which is the creation of new neurons. So by following the high fat diet, you're actually doing completely the opposite of when you eat carbs. So when you eat carbs, you are slowing down neurogenesis, and when you eat fat, you are actually increasing the chances of neurogenesis by creating new neurons in the brain, because your brain is made up of about 75% fat, 25% of that is cholesterol. So your body actually needs a lot of fat and cholesterol. You have two different types of cholesterol. You have HDL and LDL. So you can kind of call these bad cholesterol and good cholesterol. It depends what kind of fat you are having. You can't just give a blanket term, fat is bad. Fat makes you fat. You have different lengths of fat cells. So you have MCTs, which are medium chain triglycerides. So you have all types of different fats. You have unsaturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, you have trans fats. There are lots of different types of fat. So it's very difficult to, when people say fat makes you fat, as a completely blanket, unfalse term. But what I have learned, and it's such an amazing feeling, because I actually went back to having some carbs when I was working. When I broke up from university, I went back to having basically oats, pasta and beans and rice. I started to feel like my performance was slowing down. Like I wasn't reading as much, I wasn't being more as entrepreneurial as I like to be. And I realized slowly I thought, is it my diet? Is it going back onto the carbs? So I started to read a bit more about the books. I downloaded some new books, I brought some new books, and all 6 of the books, every single one of them, 6 different authors, 6 people who study health and fitness, study the brain, all recommend a high fat diet, a low carbohydrate diet, and moderate protein. I was probably having too much protein. I've actually lowered my protein from 1 gram per pound of body weight to actually 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. So 0.8 times 170 pounds. It's about 150 grams of protein. I have about 200 grams of fat. I was having 300 grams of fat before, so I've lowered that to 200 grams, and I have about 50 grams of carbs a day. But I will be having like a small refeed day, like about 80 to 90 grams of carbs, just so I can maintain this ketogenic diet. But the interesting thing is, each one of these people suggest following a high-fat diet is the way to a healthy brain and a healthy body. By being in a ketogenic state, your body is constantly burning fat as fuel, because there is no glucose coming into the body. The interesting thing is your body can produce enough glucose to keep it running in that certain day. So the body produces enough glucose in a 24-hour period to keep the body functioning. So there's no need to actually bring in more carbohydrates. Your body stores them in your muscles, but then your body, once your muscles are full, your body will then store them as fat. The interesting thing is when you only eat 50 to 60 grams a day, you're giving your body just enough, and then you're bringing in the fat, which then uses that straight away and utilizes that as fuel. And it's basically being in a fasted state, because you are not spiking your insulin, so your insulin levels are not having to get raised. So it's like being in a fasted state, basically not eating food. And the benefits are to obviously not fasting. One of the benefits I can list, there's a whole litany of, benefits of fasting, but in a fasted state, it has been proven in articles and research, scientists have researched this, your growth hormone levels get elevated by 2,000% when your body is in a fasted period for more than 16 hours. I mean, just that in and of itself is incredible. I mean, longevity, decreased hunger. There's a lot of benefits to fasting. I personally do a 16-hour fast a day, so I do a 16 and 8. So I try and have all my food eaten by 8 o'clock at night, and then I probably have my first meal at about 12 o'clock. But my first meal is the Bulletproof Coffee, which is the organic grass-fed butter with the MCT oil, which is a medium-chain triglycerides. And then I blend that with a hand blender. And like I say, because it's pure fat, there's no protein, there's no carbs, my body is still in a fasted state. So I'm actually still fasting until my second meal at about 5 or 6 o'clock. And the organic grass-fed butter has got polyphenols in them, and they have been scientifically proven to increase brain cognitive function. The polyphenols in the grass-fed butter and the MCT oil, the medium-chain triglycerides, mixed in with the caffeine, gives the brain function, basically stimulates brain function and gives you a mental focus for 3 to 4 hours, and actually it decreases hunger. So when you're on this diet, you just do not get hungry, and you can see sugar, you can see desserts, and you do not crave them. So it's incredible. So just to conclude, we have the 6 books that I'm really interested in, all shown to support the ketogenic diet, or they call it, some call it the ketogenic diet, some call it the high fat low carb, some don't call it low carb because they try to have 100 grams of carbs a day, so it's not exactly keto. Some go for 70% fat, 10% carbs, and 20% protein. There's different ways of matching or separating the macros, but my main message is carbohydrates. Even your oats, if they're not gluten-free, even your pasta, your rice, they contain gluten, which has been shown over and over again to cause inflammation in the brain, and it slows down the process of neurogenesis, which is the creation of new neurons, something you do not want to be doing. As soon as you eat those carbs, you get that spike in insulin. Your body has to produce insulin to break down the carbohydrates. They get broken down. Your energy levels slump. Then you have to, this is mainly in your sugars. So even your fructose, even in your fruits, you think you're eating an apple that's healthy. Conventionally, yes, it's healthy, but when you actually look into the science, at eating avocado or having eggs or cheese or red meat or some almonds is actually a lot healthier. The only fruit that I am consuming is blueberries, because they are actually a superfood and they have been proven scientifically to improve cognitive function. So they are the only fruit that I do actually eat. But just to list off some of the most healthiest foods that I read out of Genius Foods, you had your almonds. So these were the 10, I think there was 10 foods, I'll try and list some of them, that were the most healthiest, and they were included in the Genius Foods list. So you had almonds, you had eggs, you had grass-fed butter, grass-fed beef, avocados were on there, blueberries were on there. That's just a list of 7. There was about 10 to 11 of the Genius Foods. A book that I'm going to get tomorrow from Waterstones, I have pre-ordered it. It's just my main message is, lower the carbohydrates, increase the fat. You have nothing to lose. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm just sharing my experience, and it's just a shame that the whole world, You know, we're sold all this BS on TV that, you know, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. The reason that is because cereal companies need to, you know, they want to sell their products. If they said that, you know, have a high fat diet, they wouldn't be able to sell as much as they can. Same with all your carbohydrates. You know, the ketogenic diet and the high fat diet probably has about 15 to 20 foods at maximum that are really healthy for the brain. But you have all these other foods out there on the market that if they didn't sell them, you wouldn't have these giant, you know, food companies making millions of pounds, billions of pounds a year. So unfortunately, the conventional wisdom is skewed somewhat, because if the truth was told, you wouldn't have all these companies making millions of pounds a year in profit. So, you know, my main message, you know, look into the ketogenic diet or the high fat diet, and just be more mindful of what you're eating, because the performance you have mentally is just extremely important when, you know, in your daily life, because it changes the way you react with people, it changes the way you process ideas, process thoughts, and it makes you more productive when you're healthier, because you feel more healthier and you can actually, you know, take on tasks in chunks and not have energy slumps where you come, you know, you're energetic at one point and then you come all the way down and you lose all your energy. Whereas on the ketogenic diet, you don't get that at all. So it's going to be the end of the video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. I tried to keep this under 20 minutes, so I'm trying to keep these nice and short. If you did enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up. Any comments, leave them in the comment section below. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. Try and help me help you. And other than that, guys, I will see you all in the next video.